The sky over Orion 9 turned red before the humans even realized they were under attack. Ships burned through the clouds like falling stars, and ground quaked under the boots of alien invaders. Most of the planet's cities had already been lost. When Sergeant Cole Ramirez arrived at the last functioning outpost, he had been sent as part of a diplomatic security team, but war changed everything fast. Now survival was all that mattered. Cole had seen battles before, but this one was different. The enemy wasn't just strong, they were fast, silent, and absolutely ruthless. These weren't soldiers, they were hunters. Their armor looked like metal fused with bone, and they didn't speak. They only struck. Within minutes of landing, Cole had already lost half of his squad. He had no choice but to fall back into the jungle with a few survivors, running toward the unknown with no supplies and limited weapons. He hated abandoning the civilians, but there was no way to protect them all. Not then. Cole's group survived for days in the green death zone, dodging traps and scanning for motion in the dense trees. The aliens didn't pursue, but Cole knew. It was only a matter of time. When they stumbled across a small alien camp built into the cliffside, the humans were too hungry to think clearly. They moved in fast and hard, clearing the perimeter. To Cole's surprise, the aliens inside weren't soldiers. They were traitors, neutral, and they offered no resistance. Instead, they tried to negotiate. Cole was no diplomat, but he wasn't going to shoot unarmed civilians. He ordered his team to stand down. That night, around a campfire lit under the alien stars, the lead traitor approached him with an offer. As a gesture of goodwill, he said, the aliens would give Cole something useful. A gift. The man motioned toward a container. When Cole opened it, he froze. Inside was a girl alien, young, dressed in scraps and chained. Her skin was a deep silver blue. Her eyes, dull but wide, didn't look away. She didn't speak. She simply stared at him like she was waiting for orders. His team watched, unsure what to say. One of them whispered that this was common on frontier planets, that some species still treated people like tools. Cole felt his stomach twist. He looked back at the traitor and said nothing. He didn't scream. He didn't argue. He simply nodded. He accepted the girl, walked away from the fire, and into the jungle. Behind a curtain of leaves, he knelt and removed her chains. She flinched as they fell. Cole then took off his own coat and wrapped it around her. She didn't move. She didn't cry. She just stood there as if her body didn't know it was free. The girl followed him without a word. For days, she moved in silence, watching everything but saying nothing. Cole found her a full set of clothes from their spare packs and taught her how to wear them. At first, she didn't know how buttons worked. She thought the sleeves were ropes. But slowly, piece by piece, she changed. She began walking with her back straighter. She ate with her hands instead of crawling. She stared at the sky like she'd never seen it before. The team started calling her Nexa after an old Earth word for renewal. She still hadn't spoken. But one night, she saved their lives. They were camped near a river when a silent enemy drone crept near. No one heard it. Not even Cole, but Nexa rose in the dark and pointed without a word. She led them to safety before the blast took the ground where they'd slept. After that, the team stopped seeing her as a burden. She wasn't just some poor captive anymore. She had become something else, something more. Cole still didn't understand who she had been before. He didn't know what kind of world raised a girl like that. But as the days went on and the war behind them kept burning, he realized something important. This war wasn't just about planets or power. It was about people. And sometimes, freeing one person meant more than winning 100 battles. The camp moved slowly through the jungle each day, searching for a safe zone to transmit a signal. Back to Earth, Cole walked at the front, his rifle always ready, while Nexa followed a few steps behind him. She no longer shuffled like before. Her steps were quieter than anyone else's, her movements smoother than even the trained scouts. Something had changed inside her. The team noticed it too. She didn't just follow anymore, she observed. She listened. And she remembered everything. Private Marcus, the youngest in the group, taught her how to start a fire using flint. The next night, she lit it before anyone else could. Corporal Yates showed her how to reload a plasma cartridge. By morning, she had organized the ammo better than any soldier. She didn't speak, but her silence didn't mean emptiness. It meant attention. And Cole realized she had a mind built for survival. The team had started treating her with more respect, but they didn't truly understand what she had been through. Only Cole saw it clearly. When she slept, her hands would sometimes shake. Her body would curl into itself like she expected pain. One night, when thunder cracked through the sky, she screamed for the first time. The sound was raw, terrified, like a wounded animal. Cole rushed over and sat beside her. She covered her face with her hands and trembled until the storm passed. That was the moment he knew she hadn't been just property. She had been broken by someone before him. The next morning, she didn't look at him the same way. She didn't look away anymore. Her eyes met his directly. They were still silent, but they were no longer empty. That day, Nexa spoke her first word. It was his name. Cole. Just that. One word, but it landed heavier than any command. The entire team turned when they heard it. It wasn't loud, but it was clear. She said it like it meant something, like it was hers to speak. 2 days later, the camp was attacked. A sniper drone clipped Yates in the leg and dropped 2 trees with explosives. Cole barked orders, returning fire as the forest turned into chaos. Nexa didn't run or hide. She crouched beside Marcus and dragged him behind a fallen log. Then, with nothing but a broken steel rod, she charged the attacker's flank. She struck the drone's sensor directly, blinding it long enough for Cole to take the shot. After the battle, no one called her gift or slave again. She was one of them now. But her past didn't disappear. The alien traitor who had handed her over still lived, and he hadn't expected her to survive. When word reached him that the human had not only accepted the girl, but given her freedom and clothes, he became nervous. Cole learned this from intercepted comms. Apparently, Nexa had been more than a servant. She had been part of a program. A sleeper species bred to obey. Giving her freedom had broken something sacred in their culture. That night, while the others slept, Nexa came to Cole's tent and pointed to the stars. She spoke again. "I remember," she said. Then she listed names, places, procedures, experiments. She described cages, metal floors, food pushed through bars. She remembered. Others like her, smaller ones, weaker ones. All gone now. Cole listened without interrupting. He didn't ask questions, he just listened. Nexa's voice was steady, but her hands gripped her knees too tightly. She remembered everything. But now she could speak it. The next day, Cole made a decision. They wouldn't just escape. They would return to the trade post. Not for revenge, but to break the rest of the system. To free the others, if any remained. His team didn't question him. They followed, and Nexa led the way. She had become more than a rescued girl. She was becoming a warrior. Not because someone trained her, but because someone finally treated her like a person. As they crossed the ridge, the moonlight lit her silver blue skin like armor. The coat Cole had given her was gone now. She wore her own gear, custom fit, taken from a fallen enemy and repaired with human tech. She didn't wear chains anymore. She wore purpose. And even though the road ahead was dangerous, none of them felt alone. Nexa, once silent and invisible, now walked at the front. The jungle opened into a wide valley where the old trade post stood. It looked peaceful from a distance, with lights blinking and ships resting on landing pads. But Cole and his team knew better. Beneath that calm exterior were cells, weapon lockers, and a hidden network of tunnels used to move living cargo. Nexa stood beside Cole on a rocky ledge, her eyes fixed on the buildings below. She said nothing, but the way her jaw tightened showed she remembered every inch of the place. They moved at night. Marcus disabled the outer sensors while Yates covered the west approach with a scoped rifle. Cole stayed close to Nexa, who moved like a ghost through the grass and shadow. She knew where the cameras were, where the guards rotated, and where they kept the keys. Everything she did was careful, fast, and exact. The team followed her without hesitation. Even the soldiers who once called her weak now looked to her for guidance. She had become their map and compass. The first cell they reached was empty. The second had a single child, too weak to speak. Nexa dropped to her knees and helped the girl sit up. She spoke softly in a language Cole couldn't understand. The child's eyes blinked, and she nodded slowly. When Nexa gave her water, the girl clutched the bottle like it was a treasure. Cole watched with a tight chest. He had seen war's victims before, but this was different. These weren't soldiers. These were children bred to be silent and broken. They moved deeper into the tunnels, opening doors, breaking locks, and freeing every prisoner they could find. Some couldn't walk. Others crawled. Nexa kept going, her face hard but her hands gentle. She never stopped moving, never asked for help. It was like she had waited her whole life for this night. Cole knew she wasn't just rescuing others. She was rescuing a part of herself. Every door she opened was a piece of her past being torn down. Alarms went off halfway through the raid. Red lights flashed and sirens screamed. Cole cursed and signaled for defensive positions. The guards were faster than expected, and they came armed with plasma rifles and energy shields. But Cole's team was ready. Yates took the high ground. Marcus rigged the exit with mines. Nexa didn't retreat. She moved through the gunfire with her body low, her eyes locked on one target, the command tower. Cole followed her, covering her flank as bullets and beams lit up the corridors. Nexa reached the top floor and burst into the command center. The same alien traitor who had once gifted her stood behind a desk, wide-eyed and trembling. His guards stepped forward, but hesitated. Nexa didn't speak. She threw a smoke charge and dove across the floor, disabling them with precise strikes to the neck and arms. Cole secured the room. The traitor tried to run. Nexa grabbed him and slammed him against the wall. She didn't scream. She didn't hurt him more than necessary. She just looked into his eyes and asked one word. Why? The alien stuttered something about tradition, about culture, about how her kind had always served. Nexa's hand shook slightly, but she let go. She turned her back and walked away. That choice said more than any punishment ever could. By dawn, the camp was burning. The freed prisoners were loaded into stolen ships, flown out under cover of false IDs. Cole's team stayed behind to erase the records, wipe the systems, and leave nothing behind. Nexa stood beside him as they watched the flames climb into the morning sky. Her face glowed in the firelight, not with rage but with quiet strength. She had not become a killer. She had become a liberator. When they returned to the jungle, the refugees formed a circle and began to sing in soft tones. Nexa joined them, her voice blending with theirs. It was the first time Cole had heard her sing. He didn't understand the words, but the feeling hit deep. It was sorrow and survival and hope all wrapped in one sound. It made even the hardened soldiers lower their heads. That night, Cole gave her something new, a communicator linked to Earth Command. He told her she could speak directly to the human generals, tell them what she knew. Nexa looked at the device, then looked at him. You trust me? She asked. Cole nodded without hesitation. You earned it, he replied. She smiled, small but real. It was the first time he had seen her smile like that, Part 4 will show what happens when Earth learns her story and the galaxy starts paying attention to what one human did for one. Girl, asterisk. The transmission went out in the early morning, riding a secure signal straight through the cum array hidden deep in the mountain pass. Cole stood beside Nexa as she held the small communicator in both hands. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from weight. The weight of her words, the weight of her truth. She had never spoken to a human authority before. Now she was about to address Earth's military command. It was her voice they would hear first. She stood still, her silver blue skin catching the sun through the trees, and began to speak. She told them about the program, the cells, the silent girls, the broken ones. She told them how traitors bred life not to grow but to obey. She named the alien clans that had done it, listed the planets where others like her were hidden. Cole expected her voice to crack, but it didn't. Nexa spoke like a blade, calm, sharp, steady. When she finished, she didn't ask for help. She didn't ask for pity. She said only one thing. I am free now. And I want the rest to be free too. There was a long silence after she ended the call. No one in the camp spoke. Even the jungle seemed to quiet. They had all heard her. Her words had gone further than the signal tower. They had reached hearts. That same day, Earth Command responded. A full diplomatic fleet was being sent. Their message wasn't just for Cole's team. It was for Nexa herself. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. When the ships arrived 3 days later, the jungle sky turned silver with hulls. Dropships hovered low, and uniformed diplomats stepped out with wide eyes. They had read Nexa's full report, watched the footage of the trade post burning, and seen the faces of the rescued. But when they met Nexa in person, many froze. Not because she was alien, but because she looked at them with no fear. She was not a victim anymore. She was a voice. Earth Command wanted to bring her back for interviews, to make her a speaker for the Interspecies Protection Board. They offered her shelter, education, resources, but Nexa said no. She would visit, yes, but she would not leave the others behind. She wanted to go to the other camps, the other black markets. She would help them all escape, one by one, if she had to. The generals respected her choice. They gave her clearance and a personal team. Cole was at the top of that list. Nexa wasn't just saving lives anymore. She was changing policy. Earth now had evidence of a living slave system run by allied alien powers. That news spread fast. Some alien factions were furious. Others panicked. A few started destroying their own records before humans could trace them. But one thing had changed forever. Earth was watching now. And the girl they once ignored was at the center of it all. Cole noticed something else too. Nexa was changing on the inside. Her posture was always straight now. Her eyes didn't dart anymore. She walked like someone who knew the way. She laughed sometimes, short and quiet, but real. She even teased Marcus once after he fell into a swamp pit. The girl who once didn't understand how to wear a shirt now led rescue missions through minefields. And every time she freed another child, she whispered something in her old language and wrapped them in the same coat Cole had once given her. They called it the Nexa movement on the human networks. News anchors talked about her every day. Videos of her speeches went viral on alien channels. Some called her dangerous. Others called her divine. She didn't care for titles. She only cared for doors. And every door she broke open made the stars a little less dark, but not everyone was happy. One of the clans responsible for creating her species had issued a silent bounty. They wanted her erased. They couldn't allow one slave to rise and undo generations of control. Cole learned this from a captured mercenary. The price on Nexa's head was enough to buy a moon. He told her about it. She didn't blink. Let them come, she said. I've already escaped worse. She began training with Cole every morning: combat drills, weapon handling, survival tactics. She was already sharp, but now she was becoming lethal. Not because she wanted to kill, but because she had something to protect. She wasn't just a girl anymore. She was a symbol. And symbols drew fire. One night, after rescuing 6 more captives from a sunless outpost, she sat beside the fire and finally told Cole her real name. Not the one they gave her. Not the one the humans guessed. Her true name from before the chains. "I want you to know it," she said. "In case they ever take my voice again." Cole looked at her and nodded. "Then I'll carry it for you," he said. And she smiled again, brighter than before. The moon above Outpost Thera glowed soft and cold, casting silver across the canopy. The camp was quiet that night. Children slept in makeshift tents, and freed captives whispered songs by the fires. Cole sat polishing his sidearm while Nexa reviewed data from a recent raid. Everything seemed calm. But just beyond the tree line, unseen eyes tracked every movement. The bounty had reached the wrong kind of ears. And someone had finally accepted the price. He came without sound rest. In camo skin armor that shifted color with the dark, his body enhanced by gene mods designed for only one purpose: kill silently. His orders were clear: eliminate the silver-skinned girl, no survivors. Cole heard the snap of a twig, subtle but sharp. He was on his feet before the second sound hit. A projectile zipped past him, striking a wall behind Nexa's head. She dropped instantly, not from fear but training. Cole fired into the shadows, but the attacker was already moving. Fast. Too fast. The camp exploded into chaos. Marcus dove to protect the children. Yates grabbed his pulse rifle. Nexa rolled behind a crate and returned fire. The assassin moved. Like smoke, dodging bullets, phasing through gaps in tents. He reached Nexa in seconds, blade drawn. Cole yelled her name as he charged, slamming into the attacker's side. The blade sliced across his arm, blood splashing down his jacket, but he didn't stop. He tackled the killer to the ground. Nexa didn't freeze. She kicked the attacker's wrist, sending the blade into the dirt. The assassin struck back hard, landing a punch that cracked her lip. She stumbled, but Cole pulled her behind him and took another hit himself. His injured arm shook, but he raised his gun. One clean shot into the assassin's leg dropped him. Nexa took the chance. With a sharp movement, she grabbed a broken rod and pressed it against his throat. The assassin looked up at her, confused. She wasn't supposed to fight. She wasn't supposed to resist. But she did. She stared into his eyes and said nothing. He tried to speak, but she pressed harder. When his eyes rolled back, she stopped, not dead but close. Cole stood beside her, breathing hard, blood dripping from his elbow. He looked at her and gave a slight nod. "We're alive," he said. Nexa didn't answer. She was already wrapping bandages around his arm. That night, the entire camp surrounded them. The attack had shaken them, but it hadn't broken them. Nexa addressed the group, her lips still bruised, her voice steady. "They will send more," she said, "because they are afraid of change. But we are not slaves anymore. We will not kneel again." The crowd stood silent at first, then began to clap, then cheer, louder and louder. The sound filled the trees. Echoing into the sky, Cole watched from the edge of the group. He had seen many leaders rise and fall, but Nexa was different. She hadn't asked for power. She hadn't been trained to command. She had earned every look of respect with sweat and pain. She wasn't leading because she wanted to. She was leading because no one else could. And somehow, she still remembered who had given her that first coat. She walked over and took his good hand. "You didn't let me die," she said softly. Not just in the forest, but inside. Cole didn't answer. He didn't need to. His eyes said enough. She held his hand for a moment, then turned back to the fire. The assassin had been restrained and locked in a reinforced crate. He would be interrogated and sent to Earth Command. Cole wasn't sure if that would stop the next one. But they weren't hiding anymore. They had plans now. The next morning, Nexa assembled a team of humans and former captives. She gave each of them assignments, planet names, mission codes, routes. She had studied everything the enemy used to transport their prisoners. She now knew how to undo every system they had built. Cole watched her point to a galaxy map, her fingers tracing paths like a commander. She had found her purpose, and now she was giving it to others. Before they split up, Nexa pulled Cole aside. "There's one more place," she said. "The first lab. Where I was made." Her voice cracked for the first time in weeks. "I want to burn it. With you." Cole nodded. "Then that's where we go next." They sealed their gear, charged their weapons, and took one of the fastest ships from the dock. Nexa didn't look back. She was done being a prisoner. She was done being a symbol. Now she would be a storm. The planet was dead before they landed. No birds, no wind, no cities, just an endless wasteland of pale dust and silent sky. Nexa stood at the edge of the landing ramp, her eyes locked on the dark mountains ahead. Somewhere under those jagged peaks was the first lab, the place where she had been created, trained, and chained. Cole stood behind her, fully armed, and silent. He didn't ask if she was ready. He already knew she was. They moved fast across the cold terrain. Nexa led the way through narrow canyons until they found a metal hatch buried beneath the rocks. It looked rusted and unused, but the scanners told another story. Life signatures, power readings, and heat something was still alive down there. Cole set the charges while Nexa watched the stars. When the hatch blew open, dust curled into the air like smoke from old ghosts. Inside, the tunnels were clean. Too clean. The walls gleamed. Lights blinked quietly. Cameras moved, tracking them. Cole aimed his weapon, but Nexa raised a hand. "Let them watch," she whispered. "They already know I'm here." They walked deeper, passing empty cells, surgery rooms, training halls. Cole saw drawings scratched into the wall, stick figures, faces, little words in alien languages. Messages from the ones who had lived here or died here. Nexa touched one of the walls and closed her eyes. At the end of the corridor stood a door. Unlike the others, this one was sealed with a symbol, a crest of the alien clan that created her. Nexa reached out, placed her palm against it, and the door slid open. Inside stood a single figure, an old alien, frail and hunched, dressed in white robes. He didn't look surprised. "I wondered when you would return," he said. "You were our finest creation." Nexa stepped forward, calm and cold. "I was never yours," she said. The alien chuckled. "You were made to obey. But you broke your chain. Now you bring a human to finish your rebellion?" Nexa didn't answer. She looked around the room, saw the monitors, the incubators, the quiet hum of cloning vats. Children floated in some of them, unfinished, unaware, waiting to be used. Cole's stomach turned. He raised his rifle. "We shut it all down," he said. "Today." The alien only smiled. "You can burn the machines, human. But ideas can't be killed." Nexa stepped closer, her voice low. "Then I'll bury this one so deep, no one will find it again." She reached for the controls and started disabling every system. Sirens wailed, lights turned red. The old alien lunged at her, weak but desperate. Cole caught him mid-step and slammed him to the ground. Nexa didn't flinch. She finished the override, and the vats began to drain. The children inside would never be used. Not again. The building shook as the backup power grid collapsed. Cole grabbed Nexa's hand and pulled her out. They ran through the halls as explosions bloomed behind them. The lab groaned like it was alive and dying. They reached the surface just as the final blast lit the sky. Fire poured from the mountain. Nexa stood still, watching it burn. Her eyes were wet, but she didn't blink. She had ended it herself. On the flight back, neither of them spoke for hours. The stars outside the window passed slowly. Nexa finally broke the silence. "It's done," she whispered. "It's really done." Cole looked at her and nodded. "You freed them all." She shook her head softly. "Not all, but enough for others to rise." Then she turned to him, her voice quiet but sure. "You didn't rescue a slave, Cole. You helped create a soldier. A voice. A future." When they returned to Earth, Nexa was greeted by diplomats, generals, even children she had once rescued. They had all heard her story now. Statues were proposed. Monuments, she declined them all. "I want a school," she said. "For the lost, for the quiet ones. Teach them how to live with choice." Earth agreed. The Nexa Institute opened 6 months later. Its first class was made up of aliens and humans together. Cole visited her often, sometimes with supplies, sometimes just to talk. She didn't wear armor anymore. She wore simple clothes and walked among the students like one of them. But every now and then, someone new would arrive frightened, broken, unsure. And Nexa would greet them with the same old coat Cole had once given her. She never threw it away. She kept it as a reminder. A symbol of the day her chains fell off. The stars still held danger. The galaxy wasn't fully free. But thanks to one human who gave a girl clothes instead of chains, and one girl who chose to rise instead of kneel, everything had changed. Not just for one world, but for all of them. And in that quiet victory, humanity proved again why it was never to be underestimated. Asterisk.